most important issue is that folks are sensing that there's a bit of an assault on their values and the way they have lived their lives since they've been alive. And we've had this lurching, unfortunately, in society to this type of awokeness where, out of an effort not to offend others, we have stopped looking to find the truth in things. And I'll be the first one to admit that every person is created with equal dignity. Every person has equal dignity. Every person deserves to love and to be loved. But in recognizing that, we also have to recognize that there are certain truths that exist as a matter of nature. And they, frankly, exist for the benefit of society and for the benefit of families. And I think one issue that is on the top of mind to most of our constituents is that they feel that their family and their children are under attack, either in the schools or in the community, in the area of social media, in the government. And part of what I would intend to do is to reverse that trend and say, yes, every person is a person of equal dignity. We have to love everyone, regardless of anything, whether it's race, creed, sex, gender, orientation. None of that matters in determining how much love a person is entitled to or what dignity they have. But we cannot ignore the fact that there are truths of nature that help the family thrive, which help our community to thrive. That's one issue I think that is important to a lot of us. The second item is the issue that we're hopefully about to see resolved in June with the Supreme Court's decision in the Dobbs case coming out of Mississippi. A lot of folks are concerned, and in this case, I think cautiously optimistic that finally, after years in the pro-life movement, we are going to see Roe versus Wade, which was created overnight by the Supreme Court in a 7-2 decision on January 22, 1973, overturned, as it should have been many years ago. But I think we're now at the precipice where we've got the 5 conservative justices that are going to have the courage to stand up and say, no, there's nothing in this Constitution that was written in the years following the founding of our country that protects the right to abortion. It simply is not there. And this is an issue that needs to be resolved community by community, state by state. And so that is a second issue that I think is important to our constituents, to have leaders that understand that all life has dignity, including unborn life in the womb. And that's one thing that we would protect. A third issue is folks want to make sure that their community doesn't just become an unfiltered place of economic development and growth that is not controlled for the benefit of families. You know, we are a growing community. Growth is, of its nature, a good thing. You don't want decay, you want growth, but it has to be managed properly. Here, there's evidence that has not always been the case. We're living in a county that itself has $1 billion debt. We're living in a county that needs to have a more aggressive approach taken to making sure that what has brought everyone to Williamson County as a wonderful place to live, grow, and raise a family somehow isn't lost, that it's preserved. And that's one thing that I think is top of mind to a lot of our voters. And that includes things like the traffic that you mentioned with Senator Reeves, our environmental issues with water consumption, watershed, the infrastructure for the sewer and utility systems across the county. All those things I hear about from voters frequently. Does racism exist in America? And the short but unfortunate answer is yes, it does. It always has. Do our Black brothers and sisters suffer from types of racism, both in the workplace and in the broader community? Unfortunately, in too many communities, the answer still remains the same, yes. And the question is, what do we do about that? Well, I think in large part, we do the opposite of what a lot of segments of society are trying to do to erase and eradicate the problem. And I think we draw our inspiration from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who, as everyone will readily recall, said that he had a dream of living in an America where his children were judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And that's what we should do. Too often, we see the opposite happening, which is just perpetuating this racist tension that we've got in the country. It leads to things like a president of the United States saying not that I'm going to find the best person in the country to serve on the Supreme Court. I'm going to go off and find someone who's of a particular race and a particular gender to sit on the Supreme Court. Well, how patronizing is that? That's the opposite of what Dr. King said we should do, and Dr. King was right. We shouldn't judge someone by the color of their skin or by their sex or by their orientation or anything else of that nature. And we have, unfortunately, too many communities across the country that, in response to the death of George Floyd back in 2020, have begun this defund the police movement, which is probably one of the craziest things anybody could have ever dreamed up. I don't think 4 years ago in this country you could have found two people who would have thought that, hey, disbanding law enforcement in our communities was a good idea. It's a stupid idea. It was at the beginning, it remains so. And in fact, in the communities where that's been tried, they're all going back to funding police and law enforcement at levels that exceeded where they were in 2020. In fact, I was just in Los Angeles yesterday and the day before, and they're having a very energetic campaign for mayor, and there's no one in that city, as progressive and as woke as it is, who was advocating defund the police. That city has seen its homelessness population and problem just explode exponentially since the time that this defund the police movement got started. The same is true in the San Francisco Bay Area and Detroit and other communities across the country. So I think that yes, racism remains a problem in the country. It's something we all need to be vigilant about. We need to work to overcome it. The way to do that is not through defunding the police or through these kind of quota programs or affirmative action programs. The way to do it is to love others irrespective of their color.